This is something that has really ruffled so many feathers, I think for good reason, about somebody asking to, of course, be the leader of what we call the free world, unable to address this issue about race in America. You know, President Biden ran on a campaign of battling for the soul of a nation. The underlying context, of course, also included race. What is your reaction to this idea of the state and the history of America as it relates to racism?
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, because I think it's important to have this conversation. I'm going to be really careful as speaking to Nikki Haley. Obviously, she's a candidate for 2024. I'm a federal employee. I got to be careful on not to speak to an upcoming election. But I can speak to the reality, right? Which is we cannot rewrite history. We just cannot. And anyone who is a leader, a political leader, has to be truthful. They have to be honest about that. You know, and it is not helpful. We were talking about our kids, right? As our kids are growing up and learning about our history, it is not helpful to our children. We have to be honest with who we are as a country, where we're going as a country, and that is something that the president talks about. You just mentioned why the president essentially jumped into the race back in 2020. When he saw in 2017 in Charlottesville what we saw, he talks about this, the tiki torches going down Charlottesville, in the streets of Charlottesville, where you had the president at the time, President Trump, saying that there were good people on both sides, and the vile things that they were saying. We lost someone. A young woman who was fighting anti-racism died that night. A mom lost her daughter that night or that day. And so it is, you know, and he saw that and he said to himself, we're in trouble here as a country. We have to save the soul of the nation. He believed that it was important for him to run. And he did that.
You know, when you think about these issues and why it's so pressing for so many people, is that you really cannot begin to change something or have a workable solution unless you first identify a problem. It really is the underpinning and the crux of every issue that anyone in politics must address. Here is a problem, here is a solution, here are the potential hurdles, how do you overcome them? This is very, very relevant, of course, in the field of what I like to call feel-onomics. I know it's maybe not a term that Janet Yellen would talk about, but it's one that Laura Coates talks about.
Janet Yellen.
Great. I won't pretend to know as much as she does about economics, but I know how I feel about things. And I know how the average person goes to the grocery store, has a big bill and a small bag, and they obviously forgot the reusable bag. They have to buy another one when we get to the store. It's a whole thing right now, the grocery stores. And we know our personal budgets. Why is there such a disconnect between what the administration wants people to feel and believe about the strength of the economy and how so many people ultimately are feeling personally, day in and day out?
So a couple of things. There's a lot to unpack, and I appreciate the question and the opportunity here. So there's some data that we saw coming out of 2023 that actually showed, you hear the word consumer confidence, where you saw consumer confidence and it went up in a really in a big way, and kind of that we hadn't seen in a long time in the month of December. That's important.
Did you expect that increase?
Well, here's the thing. The economy is actually very strong right now. I know the feel-onomics. I think that's how you say it. I get that. But unemployment is at a historic low. 22 months, more than 22 months, it's been at under 4%. The president has been able to create 14 million jobs in the last 3 years. Remember, when he walked in, we were in a pandemic. People were losing their jobs. Small businesses were shutting down. Schools were shut down. And now, because of the actions that he's taken, whether it's the American Rescue Plan, the bipartisan infrastructure legislation, or the CHIPS and Science Act, where we see manufacturing coming back, we're seeing good paying jobs. That's a fact.
But it's also a fact that there's, I think, 71%, and you can attribute polls differently. Why do 71% of Americans think the economy is not doing well? I mean, you've listed a litany of things already. Why the disconnect?
So we know that it's going to take time for people to fully feel what the president has done. But again, we've seen consumer confidence go up. So people are starting to feel it. And not only that, last month, in the month of December, people actually spent money, right? But we understand that we have to lower costs.